Winning Plays is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
All right, welcome in. New, very special edition of the Winning Plays podcast. Celtics have had a tough time of late, and guess what? We found the perfect person to bring in for the occasion to break things down here, who we have not talked to since the beginning of the season. Rich Levine will be joining the show, and he'll be joining the Winning Plays podcast now here, Rich, which is now brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. You can go to fanduel.com/Boston to claim your $200 bonus. Rich, it's great to see you.
Is this the first FanDuel? Is this the first FanDuel sponsored episode?
The maiden voyage, yes. So
what an honor,
right? And out of the gate with putting your bets in on the Celtics losing. We're not going to talk too much about the Rockets game. I'm bringing it. Rich is the perfect person to talk to here right now because he's bringing us the West Coast perspective, the national. Remove yourself from local talk radio. Remove yourself
from society.
Society. Come on, but no, this is the Rich. First of all, it's great to have you back on. How the heck are you, and how are you feeling right now as we enter the dog days of March?
I feel good. I do. I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk about the Celtics a little bit. The dog days, right? Once you realize that as the dog days, that this happens every year. I mean, granted, I think March last year was a little bit better. Here's my question. Are we collectively going to remember the Houston Rockets loss from last night? For as upset as everybody is right now, are you ever going to think about this game again for the rest of your life? Let's say, because the rest of this week, we got Minnesota, there's Portland, there's Utah, there's Sacramento. No one's going to give a shit about this game in a week, never mind a month. Let's just start with that.
As long as they don't lose in the second round of the playoffs, I say yes. If
they lose to Philly in Game 7, you're going to say fuck that. That March,
I think you're not going to. I think that's the only. I agree with you. That's like the only situation. It's like, oh, you Celtics lost out in the 2 seed by a game, and man, if they just took care of the Rockets, but this is not that game. Like there's like 3 or 4 of these type of games over the course of the season where you're like, that's one they really like shouldn't have punted away here, but. To do that against
the Rockets, who I mean, they played well. I mean, you watched them last night, and you can see why they have a little bit of a future. I mean, they were playing without Sagoon too, as one of their best players. I don't even know if I said his name right, but Alp. Damon Stoudamire, I can't believe they did him like that. Guy gets a new job. He's like, no, I'm not leaving yet. I want to spend one more night with this team that I've put everything into for the last couple of years, and they're going to send him out like that.
Jalen tried. Jalen at least tried.
Jalen's been consistently, and that mask has given him. I don't know if it's like a little extra confidence. It makes him feel like a little bit more like a warrior. But he's been playing like it. He's not the problem. That's for sure.
But you like? I think you bring up. Let's start with Damon here. Like the whole situation, because I think it is an intriguing wrinkle here. One, for what you just mentioned, I think it is like kind of not, but it's sad that he would put off the flight to Atlanta for one night. And then
maybe Tatum was just a little depressed about losing.
Did they go out the night before to exactly? They like maybe took him out one last night and spent a little.
Houston's a place to do it,
right?
Talk to James Harden about that.
He'll be back there next year. But it is a situation though where now you look at Stoudamire is gone. I feel like there have been some situations where an assistant will stay to finish out the season. This is not one of those occasions. He needs to get to recruiting and stuff. It sounds like so he'll be, picking things up and running, which is a credit to him. That's a good opportunity for him to go.
Especially when like you might have assumed, like without knowing much more about the situation, that he might have been the guy that got the interim head coaching job, right? Like you can understand him being like, okay, maybe my future is not going to be in Boston, and I'm going to go build my own college program, which is pretty cool.
Exactly.
And I think everyone. I can't imagine anyone. You can say anything you want about Ime. I don't think anyone could say anything negative about Damon Stoudamire and his years on the bench. He was a pretty cool guy as a player. The guy was really hard to dislike player, coached the same way. So good luck, Coach Dave.
Yeah, it's funny. He filled in for 2 games back in December for Mazzulla after the eye scratch cornea incident in the pickup game, and he was great. And as far as being like you talk to these guys and, as assistants, but they're not in front of the microphone much, but he was just great in terms of talking about the team and his perspective and just and having the opportunity, obviously, in those couple games, one of which actually came against the Rockets. So for him to get that now at a pretty high profile school in the ACC will be great. And from the sounds of it, the Celtics have no plans to, replace his job at this point of the year, which makes sense given, how close you are to the finish line. Is that do you see that having kind of any impact on things going forward? It's just a tough break. Does someone else, you wonder who gets pushed up to the front of the bench there, who gets, Joe Mazzulla's ear in his spot, because clearly he was, his number one or number two as far as assistance goes. It's kind of an interesting wrinkle here entering a crucial stretch.
Yeah, and you just never know. Like, again, I feel like you would know better than me being a little bit closer, but I could see Damon Stoudamire as someone who did it at the highest level for so long, being like a guy that some of these dudes can lean on and talk to, maybe if they're not connecting with Joe or for whatever reason. Like, you spend enough time in a team atmosphere like that, and I'm sure Damon was the guy for at least one or two of those players. So, I mean, you imagine you'd got to feel that. But again, they're grown men. I'll give Jason Tatum the grown man classification at 25 years old. They've been through this. They've been pretty much as close as you can get to winning an NBA title. They were there. They lived it. They experienced that, and I think that that's more important than anything. I don't see whether they feel the impact of Damon leaving. I don't imagine that would be the reason they don't repeat.
I think it's a perfect way to sum it up. Like, it's an extra. It stinks to lose that value on the staff. Like you said, that the NBA, I think he was the only one on the staff with NBA experience.
Shit. Well, that seems significant. Right.
But at the same time, like, these guys have been there now, and they've been there together a bunch outside of, a couple of new faces in the equation, but the core is Brenner on the block. And so that's certainly not going to make or break what happens here in the next, 2+ months.
So in order to make up for some of these things, again, maybe it's not a giant hit, but a bunch of little hits that are building up right now at this point in the season. So I think first and foremost, Marcus Smart needs to stop playing like an ass. Right? Like, I'm not saying that he is. We love Marcus Smart, but right now he is a big, I would say, potentially the biggest issue.
It's certainly last night.
Since he's been back, I think last night.
You're right. He just hasn't been. Do you think that's do you think he's just still not right after the ankle situation, or do you think he just is in a funk and this is just he's got to figure out how to get out of it?
You can say funk, but it just doesn't seem like it just seems personal with him. He seems in his own head playing, and he's always playing games, but it seems more about Marcus to me right now than it does the team potentially. I think stupid fouls. Like, I think his assist to turnover is 4-3 almost. And plus minus obviously is a great stat when it helps your argument, but I think 9 out of 11 games he's been a net minus since he's been back. The focus doesn't seem there. They're always bad shots, but when it's bad shots on top of stat lines of 2 assists and 5 fouls and however many minutes, it's just it's not what this team needs right now, especially. And I know many people are making this argument, but you got 2 very capable point guards who are both playing. You don't even think about what they could be. They are both currently playing at the top tier of their game. When you get one of those guys on the bench when it matters most, and I don't know, because I think eventually you need Marcus Smart in crunch time if you're going to win a title. You need that best guy that you want out there.
Sure.
So I understand sticking with him to a certain extent, but it's on him to fix it right now.
It's a really good point, because. And I think you look at Joe Mazzulla as much as Marcus Smart at that point in terms of what Joe, Marcus is a Joe guy, and he is stuck. I don't think he's been benched once in a meaningful crunch time all year long, period. And so now with the season that Derek White is having, to your point now, and Malcolm Brogdon from an offensive standpoint, obviously Brogdon has his defensive limitations, but is clearly a guy you want out there for the upside in those late game spots. If Marcus is playing like this, I'm a few 100% White you can't be benching White in these games. You have to show some more flexibility on that front, because right now it is not directly costing you games, but it's coming close to it when I think the Houston game is a perfect example there when he's driving the lane with nowhere to go on a crucial possession with 2 minutes left, or taking a three that you could have made an extra pass to someone else. Like those just aren't
with like 23 seconds left on the
yeah,
on the shot clock, or 13, whatever. If it was on
whatever. I know what that game was like through last week, 100%. And so
there was one against the Rockets too.
Yeah, exactly. So it's happening every game now, and Tatum is getting a lot of heat now too. And I think some of that is deserved, some of it's not. But I think Smart is kind of flying under the radar, like you said, and you nailed it. His assist to turnover ratio is 36 assists, 27 turnovers since the All-Star break, shooting 36% from the field and 35% from three, which means any 2-point shot from right now is not coming close to going in. Like it's probably got to be one of the worst 2-point percentages on the team, much less the NBA amongst regular rotation players at this point.
And I think a bulk of those twos are like fadeaway jump shots, like off balance in the paint, like shit that looks like 1997 Michael Jordan shit, or you know what I mean? It's just like, and once in a while it goes in, like he has those games, but like if that's consistently Marcus Smart, like, and I know you've been all over this for years, and I'm saying that like this is not giving up on Marcus Smart. Like this is just saying,
are you drinking to me right now? Because I feel like
he objectively needs to play better. He just needs to play differently. Yeah. There is a switch that seems to be just pointing in the wrong direction right now, where it's just, and it's coming up in the worst possible times. And again, Jason Tatum plays a little bit better. We don't care as much. Grant Williams just foul shots.
All right, let's take a break here to hear from our sponsor, FanDuel. Massachusetts, listen up. The wait is finally over. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is now live in Massachusetts. And new customers in Mass can get in the action with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So just sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston. And finally, you can bet on all your favorite sports, from the money line to point spreads to player props and more, right on your phone. You can just download it on the app. The app has everything on there, whether you want to bet on the MVP race, whether you want to bet on playoff odds, or this night's game. You can bet on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. So don't miss out on your chance to get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook. You must be 21 and present in Massachusetts. First online real wager only, $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel. Sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Hope is here. Gambling helpline ma.org, or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. And now back to the show.
So two things. People talk about what's missing right now. What are the issues? The Williams. This is another thing. You think, what's it going to take for the Celtics to be as good as everyone thinks they can be? And if you don't have the Williams being the Williams, and that doesn't mean even $20 million a year Grant. That means like seventh man Grant. That means 80% of the games you have Time Lord out there. And I know that's just not a reality right now. But like without those two, like that shit in Houston, like those offensive rebounds, that doesn't happen with Time Lord out there. May not even happen if Grant's out there boxing out and just being Grant. But, Robert's hurt and Grant is just out of the rotation. And how much worse could it be if you just throw him back out there at the rate he was playing earlier in the year?
And that's kind of where I'm at with it, because with Grant, and we've talked about this in recent weeks too, I feel like that's a guy, as you just brought up, like if you want to get to where you want to go in the playoffs, like Grant's going to be a big part of the equation for his defense on some of the key names that you could be facing in round 2 and round 3 and beyond. And so I'm just not a big fan of the fact of yanking him around like this when you're going to have to go back to him, because Luke Cornet is not going to, you're not going to be playing Luke Cornet and Blake Griffin against the Sixers in round 2, and if you are, you're going to be losing.
Or Hauser or Muscala. Like, yeah. I just think if these are guys that you're really leaning on, and you're just like, all right, I opened my NBA app and now it's playing into my Muscal yelling about something. If you're rolling with Hauser and Muscala, and I think that like each one of those guys could potentially win you a playoff game over the course of a long, hopeful road to the finals or whatever it is. But if every single night you're rolling those guys out and hoping to win, like you said, like against Milwaukee or Philly, it's not going to happen.
And so do you feel
you need
like
Grant, you need Robert.
Right.
You probably need Blake more than other those guys, just because I think he can mix it up a little bit more and be some sort of muscle underneath.
And I'm just not crazy too about like, it's like, okay, the defensive rebounding has disappeared late in games. They're getting crushed in the glass. And it's like, oh, why is that happening? It's like, well, I have a decent guess. You're playing, I'm going on a limb here, Rich. Is it A, like Al Horford is going to turn 37 and is playing more minutes than he has in like 6 years, and so probably
playing better, by the way, than
playing great.
Imagine him too.
Exactly. Yeah. He's like, thank God. I mean, like he's Steph Curry from the 3-point line right now, but yeah, he's not in there trying to throw elbows and get 15 rebounds a game anymore. He hasn't been that guy for a long time.
Yes,
and you throw that with Tatum and Brown also playing a ton, probably don't have a lot left in the tank at the end of these games to box out athletic wings or forwards that are continuously crashing.
That's not what we're counting on them to do. And right. you like to see it. You like to, and there are games where they both, especially Tatum, you can see he starts to really dominate the boards, like in crunch time, and where he wants the ball, it gets it, takes it, and then brings it up himself. But like, no, you catch your breath for a second and let some other guys crash the boards. But like you said, who's that now? If Grant's on the bench, if Rob's on the bench, if Marcus,
Luke Cornet is not a good rebounder. Like he's good offensive rebounder, but he's not going to get a lot of bulk in there. And then is, I mean, he had a nice run for a couple games, but he seems like he's fallen. I mean, he's been out of the rotation now too for the last 2 games. So it's like, it's Blake and that's it, I guess. And I don't know.
I have to admit something about Cornet too.
Yeah.
The eclipse officially bums me out a little bit. So I loved it. Like I really loved it when he brought it out at the beginning of the year. Yep. But now when he does it, and every time someone hits it, like there was one again in Houston last night. Who's that? The power forward?
Oh yeah, Houston? Garuba. Like
one of the threes he hit. And I watch a lot of NBA. I play a lot of like FanDuel. Like I do daily like the yearly fantasy, daily fantasy. And when a guy that I've never heard of is hitting 3-pointers in crunch time against the Celtics, that hurts on itself. But when it comes like with the eclipse in his face, it's like
the backdrop.
It's insult to injury. So I'm gonna request that until we start winning a few more games, until the Celtics start winning a few more games, that we put the eclipse on the shelf.
Yeah,
not Luke Cornet himself necessarily, but that aspect of him.
And that's not knocking all these guys. Like they've gotten plenty out of Luke and Blake and these guys throughout the year, but I don't think those contributions should be ramping up at this point of the year. And when Grant is not necessarily playing any, I understand maybe sitting him for a game to like get him back on the right track and, not even send a message, but just, he was in a slump too on top of it. But now it's like, okay, are you better off with like Grant Williams or Luke in crunch time, which they played a lot of Luke in the fourth quarter Monday night. And they did it last week too in Cleveland. I think it's like, it's time to, the alternatives aren't better than the continuity you potentially have with Grant here, I feel like.
Especially, like you said earlier, when you think about the big picture. You're not going to you take the best case scenario on Luke Cornet, you take the best case scenario on Grant Williams. Like, you need the Grant Williams best case scenario to compete in the East. So let's throw him out there and see if that's the best. I just don't think playing him 8 minutes a night and just like randomly benching him for games, that doesn't seem like a path to getting the best out of Grant, especially coming off those 2 missed foul shots too. That sucked that he missed them. Clearly the first one was not even close. He almost airballed it, but like, I don't know. And I know Joe said to the media, he's like, I love Grant. And that seemed to be take a nice stand for him. But I don't know. I just think kind of burying him after that just doesn't seem like a recipe for success. What do I know? Like you said, I've removed myself from society out in the West Coast. I watch the games on TV with kids yelling in my ear the whole time. Like I only am getting a certain amount of info on what's really going on, but that's just how it feels.
That's can be very valuable perspective, because I think what you see with that kind of background noise will stand out more than the people that are screaming in our ears in section 19 at the TD Garden. So that's
true.
Important to keep in mind. Where
what
are
are they
you on Joe
screaming?
as a
Like,
whole though? Where are you on Joe as a whole though? Like for the year? Like are you he obviously got the job. We haven't talked since then permanently at the All-Star break. Clearly earned it with the way this team started and what he had to deal with from a off the court stuff logistically with getting the players to fully buy in with Ime out the door unofficially and now officially. But are the bumps in the road for him here, whether it's late game stuff or the things we've been talking about, just simply that, or is that any stuff that as you turn the page to April and May that you're like, ooh, like I don't know.
Yeah, forget. I was talking to someone that works for one of the NBA teams over the summer. I remember, and they had, I forget if it was either 70-30 or 80-20, but they said like that's the percentage of the impact that a coach has in the NBA on winning versus players. Mm-hmm. Players being the 80%. So I think we talk about what Joe was able to accomplish early in the season. I don't even know if we can call it Joe's accomplishment. I think Tatum and Brown, Marcus, I think those guys came out pissed off from the way the season ended. They had that fire. They took everything personally, and they made it so, Joe Mazzulla wasn't really that much of a factor. Like no one was talking about him sitting out of timeouts when they had the best record in the league for the first half. And I guess, right, adversity is when maybe the coach is going to come in and keep them together. It's a long game. It's a long season. In my mind, I really believe that when push comes to shove on this season, when you get back into the playoffs, and it doesn't make me feel great that Marcus was referencing last year and sort of his excuse for the recent play. We did it last year, so hopefully we can do it again. I don't think you can count on that. You can't. That's dangerous. That's playing with fire. But I really think that when it gets to winning time, that these guys are going to snap out of it. We call this the dog days. It's understandable. It's been a long season, that there might be some bumps in the road. So no, I don't worry that much about Joe Mazzulla. He'll be a great scapegoat if it doesn't work out. I think people will run with that. There are always going to be things that go either way. Do you call a timeout? Do you not call a timeout? Do you get a set rotation in early March, mid March, late March? How much is that going to make a difference in Game 7 in Milwaukee, right? But it makes a difference, I guess, because if you get a few more wins now, maybe Game 7's in Boston. Right. But yeah, to answer your question, I can't get that stressed out about Joe Mazzulla right now, because I think that they have the weapons to make him a less of a factor. It's more on the Jays and Marcus.
All right, let's take another break to hear from our sponsor, HelloFresh, where you can get farm fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. HelloFresh, they know you're busy. That's why they take care of all the meal planning and prepping for you, freeing up extra time in your schedule with those pre-portioned ingredients, foolproof recipes, and convenient doorstep delivery. HelloFresh makes it easy to get dinner on the table, and you can get these ingredients that vary based on the time of year. So you can get peak ripeness for all your fruits and vegetables for quality. You can taste ingredients travel from the farm to your home in less than 7 days, so you know they're fresh. Personally, I know in the grind of a season, I'm not home as much as I want to be to meal prep. My wife has just started a new job. With a little one at home, meal planning can kind of slip through the cracks. So HelloFresh is a great way where we know we're getting the right ingredients at home, and we can make easy meals for ourselves without, wasting so much time. So here's what you can do. You can go to HelloFresh.com/winning60 and use the code winning60 for 60% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/winning60 to use the code winning60 for 60% off plus free shipping. It's a great deal. Make sure you check them out. HelloFresh, it's America's #1 meal kit.
They got more experience than him.
They really do. And I think you break it down. Like this is what's going on right now is it comes down to the guys we've been talking about. Like it starts with the head of the snake and Tatum, and then Smart, and figuring out if they're going to get Robb back healthy or not. What is his role going to come back? And I guess we'll touch on him too right now. Like when he comes back, the starting five.
You say when. So this is.
I mean, is that? Am I going too far? Are we being like what's?
I hope not. I made me optimistic when you said when, but like, so what do you like? What's the latest that they've said about him? And
So he's on the trip. He was out. The initial timetable was 7 to 10 days. And then he told, I believe, Adam Hill's Bachman Globe that he plans to return on this road trip, which means he'll return at some point in the next week. Given the fact he has not looked like he really has at all last year yet. He's had flashes, but generally has been, inconsistent. The starting five from last year have been straight up bad together when they've played together and since the All-Star break before he got hurt again. And so I guess my question to you now is like, when he comes back in the regular season, A, how do you handle him minutes wise? How much are you babying him just to like get him, to the playoffs in one piece? And two, are you starting him or are you just bringing him off the bench? Because that might be the better way for you to try to win games regardless when push comes to shove.
so it would be better to start him, you're saying?
Or are they like, is it better is starting him and Al together make sense? Is that still the best lineup no matter what against any team they play? Or should they considering bringing him off the bench or, they're obviously not going to bring Al off there, but bring him off the bench and play him 20 minutes, as so you don't have to play Cornet or Blake or even Grant,
Sure.
I guess, if you're not going to want him.
Yeah, it's tough. Like he's a guy that I like the idea of him playing the most minutes with the Jays and maximizing them. I guess I'm not even as much worried about the starting and coming off the bench, but like you said, just he's got to be there for the playoffs. Like I was talking with someone the other day, I think the way breaking it down, we need like 2 Grant games a postseason, a series, 2 games every series. You need Grant to show up. 2 or 3, you need Al. 2, you need Robb. Maybe 4, you need Marcus. But you're going to need each one of those guys to have a game, to be the best version of themselves, to whether it's win a game sometimes on their own, but like to be the difference maker. So if Robb's not there, and we talked about that earlier in this pod, just about the remaining options right now, assuming that Al Horford, as awesome as he has been, he's not Al Horford the way he was in Atlanta, and that's fine. Like that's like more than a decade ago. Not that guy. Can't count on him to be that guy. Grant, even at his best, is a little undersized, maybe even a lot undersized. If Robb's not there, this is bad news for making it through. We're talking about Milwaukee, Philly, like these tough, strong. I mean, the Knicks, fuck, like any one of these teams, like
sure,
like you need a little Robb. Need a little Robb. So just do what it takes to get him to be able to contribute in some capacity. That's my one plea.
Well, if he comes back with 10 games left, like play him in 5, like play him in, like, it's almost like, or just play him 10, 15 minutes. Just like, yeah, I'm with you. That just, they obviously didn't have him healthy at all for the playoffs last year. He came back, but he was not, he was dealing clearly on one leg.
I take that though.
Seasons. But you take that version of
sure.
You still take that. Ideally, you can get him even better than that, because then even the year before that, when he had like 10 blocks against the Nets in that one game, and then had to sit out the rest of that series because he was playing on like 4 toes. So if you can just get, because it's a push and the pull there too, because you want to try to build up his stamina. You want to make it so he's not calling him for a sub 5 minutes into the first game of the playoffs if he hasn't played for weeks. But it's the balance there for the training staff has got to be tough in terms of keeping him ready to go, but also making sure that he's in a position to give you something.
So I see we got like 5 minutes left in our Zoom here. So Celtics have like in their next like 10 games or so, I think they'll probably be favored in at least 8 of them.
Yeah, I think it's a good guess. I think only road Milwaukee. Yeah, like Sacramento, they'll probably be underdogs.
And road Milwaukee,
road Philly. So those are probably the 3 games that they're not.
And so, I mean, if they do what they can, that's at least 8-3. You take 7-4. I think that happens. I mean, you got to win one of those games. If they win every other game and they lose to Sacramento and they lose to Milwaukee and they lose to Philly, it's like the opposite of what we've kind of been accustomed to with this team, where they lose to the shitty teams, but then when they got the games that they have to win, they step up. I think it would be cool to see that happen again. Go, and even if you lose a couple of these other ones, even if you drop to Utah, if you lose to Minnesota, if Dame goes for 70 and you lose the game in Portland, like you win those games where the spotlight's on you, against these teams that are going to be there at the end, and you can go on the road and get a couple wins there. I think that solves a lot of this. Those are the things that happen that make the Houston game a very quick memory, distant memory. But if not, I mean, there'll be plenty to yell about, plenty to be upset about. Not me though.
No, this is
no.
It's funny though, because they're only a game up right now on Philly for that 2 seed, and now they're 2.5 back of Milwaukee with 1 game to play there. So if they start reeling off wins on this road trip, they can still be knocking on that door on the Bucks. But in my mind, honestly, that the number 1 seed's almost gone at this point with the way they're playing. There's been a mediocre team for a few weeks now, and it's far more important for them to, just snap out of that as opposed to, run everyone on the ground trying to get the 1 seed, and when you're probably have a bigger chance of falling down to 3 if you go down that path.
I had a great future bet on Mazzulla to win Coach of the Year too.
Ugh.
And I was counting it as you might imagine, but it seems like Mike Brown's probably going to run away.
Mike Brown might have that one locked up. But if you do want to make any more bets though, Rich, you know where you can go.
Ooh, I can't because it's not legal.
That's true. It's
very,
not
very liberal state, California.
But you can fly back here.
That's true. When I'm visiting my parents, I can get all my in. Where can I get that if I want to?
FanDuel.com/Boston. Claim that $200 bonus in free bets. When are you going to come? We want to see you back. I think you might be called upon to come back to Boston in the postseason here to turn things around, Rich. We're getting to a point there where that might become a necessity.
Yeah. I haven't been to a game at the Garden. I couldn't even tell you. I think 2019, pre-COVID.
Wow.
Since I've been to TD. I've seen the Celtics at Staples a few times, and I saw them in Denver but I have not been to a home game. So maybe that's what it'll take. Game 7, if they get the number 1 seed, Game 7 against Milwaukee and Boston, I'll be there.
All right, you heard it here
first. Do it live.
Do it live. We'll get Mike on for that one too. But no, it's great to see you. Great to have you back. Hopefully, we'll be talking to you more here as the playoffs get going for the West Coast perspective. Make sure you're obviously following Rich as well on Twitter.
How could you not follow me on Twitter?
Levine. I mean, he tweets up a storm. Like, I mean, it's tough to keep up with the amount you're tweeting on there, Rich. So
I will understand if you mute me after a couple of days of just nonstop nuggets.
Oh man, but no,
cool. Good to talk to you, man.
Good to talk to you, buddy. Rate, review, subscribe, everyone, and we will talk to you again next week.